Hi everybody, this is John back with another model inbox review. What we're looking at here is actually a Fairey Firefly. This is a Mark V, and looking at the frontal arrangement on the aircraft, I'm guessing it is an AS Mark V or an FR Mark V. The Firefly, little bit of interesting history on this. The aircraft actually entered service in 1943 with the Royal Naval Air Service during World War II as the F Mark I. And it went through several upgrades to end up in this guise, in which this particular aircraft is a Mark V, but the Mark IV had the same airframe. The Mark V and the Mark VI, they all had the same airframe, but they were tailored toward very definitive roles. And the Mark VII had a completely redesigned tail fin, but was a dedicated anti-submarine platform, anti-submarine tracker, not hunter. The hunters were generally Sky Raiders in the 1950s. But anyway, what we'll do is, which kit are we doing? Well, we're actually doing an Airfix kit, the Airfix Fairey Firefly Mark V. But before we go into the boxing history, which is what we normally do, I just want to show you a few options that are available in the options and costs, so that you can see exactly what kits are being offered by different companies. As I said, the original aircraft was the F Mark I, and this is an F Mark I, clearly and easily recognised by the fact that the aircraft has a chin radiator under a three-bladed propeller. The aircraft was powered by a Griffin engine, but I think the Mark I was powered by a Griffin 6 or a Griffin 2, and the later variants of the FR Mark Is were upgraded with Griffin 12s, which developed about 1700 horsepower and gave the aircraft much better performance at lots of different heights, and also a much improved overall speed over the standard Mark I. Then you had this airframe, which incorporated the F Mark IV, F Mark V and F Mark VI. They all utilised this airframe, but the F Mark IV was generally the latter developed Griffin 12 with this new airframe, and the aircraft was utilised in the fighter reconnaissance role mainly. The FR Mark V, or F Mark V as it's commonly called, there were two defined differences in that aircraft. There was a fighter reconnaissance variant, which looked much more like the Airfix kit that I'll be doing the inbox review on, and then there was this variant, which carried a blade cover over the aircraft's exhaust stubs. There you can see them. That denotes the fact that it's an NF Mark V or Mark IV, which is a night fighter variant. And then the Mark VIs were basically anti-submarine warfare variants or night fighter variants, and they were used in the fighter reconnaissance role during the Korean War as well as the Mark Vs. Then you also had this variant, which is a T Mark I. The T Mark II was identical to this, except that it had the upgraded engine and a four-bladed propeller. This is a T Mark I, denoted by the three-bladed propeller, but the aircraft were all basically yellow, with the tandem 2 cockpit arrangements. Identical cockpits front and back, and the controls were identical, but it was dual control as a trainer. You also had target tug variants of this, which had a more conventional rear cockpit arrangement, but they were black and white striped underneath, yellow and black striped underneath, and they were used for towing targets for fighters to attack. Anyway, the kits, the Airfix kit, originally was released as a Mark V in 1964 in the red stripe boxings. And they were for the era when they were released, they were very, very lovely looking little kits, and they were very, very much liked by the modelling community when the kit was released in 1964. The red stripe boxing went on to the Type 4C boxing as seen here. Again, it's the same artwork, no difference whatsoever, but they did away with the scroll symbol here and brought in the more usual Airfix style logo and brought Airfix 72nd scale onto the front of the box. That's a Type 4C there. Then it was released, I believe this is a Type 7 box. This is under the original leadership of Borden and Company, when Panatoy released the models under their marketing, and this is what I call the blueprint style boxing, is where the kits were built up and viewed on top of a blueprint, which often had nothing to do with the model itself. That even looks like two differentials done it from a truck or something, which is very, very unusual. Anyway, that was the 1982 release. The Type 4, by the way, was released in 1973, which was interesting. 1996 gives way to another type of boxing. These are more under the guidance of General Mills, and their marketing agent, I believe, was Humbrol, which meant that Hella got most of the money, obviously, because Hella owned Humbrol at the time, and all these tools were shipped over to France and the kits were made in France. But that is basically the 1996 release. Something happened in 1996, which I'll tell you about in a minute. Anyway, 1996 went through to 1997, and Airfix released what was called the Royal Naval Historic Flight, which consisted of an old tool Fairey Swordfish, an old tool Armstrong Whitworth Seahawk, and you can't see it behind that label, but that is actually the Fairey Firefly Mark 5. And these kits came with very nice humble enamel paints, paintbrush and a tube of glue. They were a nice little kit, but these two kits weren't fabulous, but the Firefly was quite adequate. It was a good kit. 1997 goes away to 2000, and we have what's called the Fly-In Hours introduction onto an original type of boxing, but this is under the guidance of Maguire and McGuinness, I believe, by 1998, and they released this kit in that year. It's interesting to see that this is a bomber variant, a fighter bomber variant, but it almost certainly would have been an FR Mark 5, that variant. 1998 goes through to 2000, and again we have Maguire and McGuinness chucking out kits in boxes that were originally designed by Panatoy for when the kits were released by Borden Incorporated. And this was again exactly the same theme from 2000 to 2001, where these kits were released in this style of box again. The serial numbers were the only differences in these boxings when they came in the Panatoy style plans, blueprint style boxes as I call them. Just a quick interesting thing, the original kit was released in light blue plastic, as you'll see in a minute. I've got this particular release, 1964 release, which was released in light blue, and it went right up to the first Panatoy release kit, which I believe is 1982. This was released in light blue plastic as well, and it's what's called the late release light blue issue. Decals are exactly the same, but this leaflet here and the instructions are very different to the one I have. Then in, I believe, 1998, these kits really start to come out in grey plastic, which is interesting. Yeah, very interesting. Not a lot of difference in quality of the parts here. I'm looking at these parts and they look pretty similar to mine, but obviously mine are blue plastic. A nice image here of a Mark 5. I believe, don't quote me, but I believe this was a picture of the original Royal Naval Air Service Mark 5 Firefly. I have actually seen this aircraft flying when it came to the Sunderland Air Show many years ago, and I'm not sure if it's still in flying condition now, but I do believe the Royal Naval Historic Flight do have a flying condition Firefly, which it would be nice to see on the flying circuit because it's a lovely aircraft. Anyway, we'll just pan the camera down and let's have a look at this little kit. It's a lovely little kit, this. Never built this kit before, but yeah, let's have a look at it. The camera stand doesn't want to stay up. Front image, I like this. This, of course, is Roy Cross artwork at its best. Side panels, you've got two kits there, the HUD3A Val and the Vertal 107 Mark II. in Swedish markings, and on the other side you've got what was originally a Series 2 Avenger kit, which was eventually boosted to Series 3, and the Mitsubishi Ki-46 Dinar, which is quite nice as well. The end of the box shows you the scroll type of label that Airfix used in the 60s, and the patent number is 298. Yeah, interesting. What do we get inside? Well, let's have a quick look at what we get. What I'll do is let's get the interesting stuff out before I get the parts, and pop that into there like that. Anyway, you get a nice stand. This is an Airfix original stand. These are quite collectible, and you can sell these. They fetch anything up from £1 to £2.50, depending on how desperate somebody is for one of those. The instruction leaflet, again, it's the old style instruction leaflet, which came with the text writing to show you exactly what to do, where to do, what parts were called. I used to love this because it used to tell you exactly what the parts were called. For instance, part 6 here, cement control column 6, interlocating hole in the cockpit floor in front of the pilot. So you know, it was completely idiot proof. But the instructions are basically just slightly smaller than A4. The old style instructions where everything's in exploded views with everything happening all in the same place, but basically the airframe goes together with the interior, and the propeller there, cockpit canopies, rear bulkhead. You get 2 pilots in there, but don't laugh when you see them, they're not brilliant. And then on section 2 you've got the undercarriage assembly, and the ordnance, and I think these are they're radar pods for the FR variant, which was quite nice. And then on the back you've got the colour callouts for one version there, and it's telling you to paint this kit Tucker green underneath and dark sea grey on the top. That will probably be matte 90 and matte 27 on the top, with some extra colours here and there for bits and bobs. The decals on this kit, yeah, it's a 1964 issue, so the decals are not going to be great. I think they're usable, and I don't think you're going to need to blanch, but I might have to. I don't think you're going to need to blanch them in the window, but I might have to trim those invasion stripes. I don't know, maybe these decals need blanching as well. They don't look great, do they? But the register on those roundels don't look too bad. So yeah, maybe 2 or 3 weeks in the window whilst this kit's getting built for the decals. I think this is an old style complaint slip where you wrote away to get replacement parts, picked by number 55. That'll be a workman who used to work at Haldane Place in London in the 60s. And on the back you've got the checklist for the Airfix's complete range on the back, and you could use this to check off the kits that you hadn't got, and you know, go in and decide when you want to buy them and what kits you wanted to build next. It was nice. Right. There's not an awful lot which you need to look at twice. So what I'll do, let's get the bits out of here, because what I do now is I tend to put bits that are small parts into a bag so I don't lose them, and then you haven't got to write away to Airfix and beg in hand to try and get bits that you know you're never going to be able to get. Let's try and get the transparencies out of here, because the transparencies tell a story. And they really do. There's the forward canopy. The forward canopy, I'm going to try and hold that so you can see it. It's not fantastically transparent. It's okay, you'll be able to see through that, but it's not fantastically transparent, and it's not fantastically framed either. So yeah, that's the forward canopy. You've got 2 more canopy sections in this kit. You've got this one here and this one here, which butt up against one another in the rear cockpit canopy section. And these are slightly better framed, but they're not fantastically clear again, are they? They're not bad, but they're not brilliant. And that's the rear section, the very rear section, which again, yeah, it's not too bad. That one's framed quite nicely actually, and it seems to be a little bit clearer. Quality control in the 60s, eh? Right. the sprues in this kit. There are 3 sprues in this model. The parts aren't fantastic to write home about, but that's basically a few bombs and wheel hubs, an antenna that goes under the wing there. You've got some support struts. I think they're butts for the underside of the wing, but I don't know what they do. And then you've got some bombs. They're the cannons. I think that might be the joystick. Part 6. 2 undercarriage doors there. Quite a bit of sinkholes in there, but yeah, not going to write home about. 2 pilots. I did mention these pilots, didn't I? One of them looks like one of the pilots you used to get in bomber command kits. Can you see him? He looks like he should be flying a Halifax or something, doesn't he? And he should be black. The other kit, the other pilot, looks like a pilot out of an RE8. And he's full of flash, which is unusual because this is a 64 release. And there shouldn't really be any flash on that pilot, but he is definitely not fantastic, is he? Propeller's nicely moulded. A little bit of burr on there to remove, but it's a nicely moulded prop. And the spinner's beautiful. There's the spinner that goes on there. It's a big chunky spinner on the Firefly, wasn't it? A couple of avionics forward sections there. Nothing to write home about. Got the rear bulkhead. No, that's one of the wheels, sorry. That's the other part of the wheel. There you go. Not much going on. Floor pan. Again, that's quite... I think it's supposed to go that way up. Yeah, there's the avionics on the floor pan. Nice. You've got... I think that's one of the ailerons. It's quite nicely moulded, actually. It's got some nice fabric features on that. That's quite nice. And the trim tab's quite nice. You don't need to see another one of those. You don't need to see another one of those. This is basically the 2 parts that make the inner wing. Got that one there for the underside. Quite nicely moulded, and the finish on it is quite nice, not overdone rivet detail. And again, the same with the upper half. Again, quite nice rivet detail on that. The wings on this kit can be optionally positioned folded. That's part 71, which is the rear arrestor hook. The stinger, they often called it. Quite nice. Tailplane. Again, quite nicely moulded. Nice rivet detail on that. That's another one. I like these as well. These are the exhaust stubs, and they're separate parts, which is great. You can paint them up before you put them in the kit. Lovely. That's more avionics fits. That's the top and bottom of them. See if I can get these so you can see them. There we go. And the avionics pits that go on the wing. I don't need those. That's one of the undercarriage doors. Interesting. Yeah, interesting. It's undercarriage strut. There he is. Quite nice as well. One of the bulkheads. Yeah. Tail wheel. Oh, there's part 6. That's the tail wheel. It's a normal tail wheel for an Airfix kit from this era. That's the joystick. Little tab on there that needs cleaning off. That's one of the seats. Yeah. Another bulkhead. There we go. There's another one of the door. I think you've seen the bombs, you've seen the undercarriage struts, you've seen all those. That's one of the antennas. You don't really have to worry about that. It's just an antenna. Everything else is fine. So it's just the wing parts, the outer wing parts, and the other side are exactly the same as this. This is the underside wing. Again, you've got the slots for the ordnance and avionics fit, and again you've got these rivet details. These are a bit heavy actually. Flaps are fixed in place, and then you've got the upper wing halves which have the blisters for the 20mm Spano cannons, and again rivet detail on that is quite heavy. And then this is the fuselage half, and again you've got some rivet detail on there. I'm trying to bring it into view for you. The fabric finishing on there is quite nice. Yeah, not that much of an issue. So I quite like the kit. The kit's parts look okay. And for the era, I didn't think you'd get a better kit for the era. Anyway, let's have a look at the Gumph, which we can finish this video off, and then we can close the video down. The model we're doing an inbox review on today is the Airfix Fairey Firefly Mark V. Its serial number originally was 298, and its original release date was 1960. I thought it was 64, but it's saying 66 here. Kit's released in 72nd scale, and there are decals for one version, a Fairey Firefly Mark V of 817 Squadron Royal Australian Navy, embarked on the Royal Australian Naval aircraft carrier Sydney during the Korean War around about 1951-52. There are 68 parts on 3 light blue plastic sprues and 3 parts on 1 transparent sprue, totaling 71 parts in total. The kit's dimensions should be 6.5 inches long by 7 inches in span by 2 inches high on its undercarriage. Now the options and cost, I've only really covered 72nd scale. There isn't an awful lot in other scales, but what there is in 72nd is basically 2 models. There's the original Airfix Fairey Firefly Mark V, which retails for about anything between 12 and 45 quid, and the Airfix Royal Naval Historic Flight Set, which comprises the Firefly Mark V, the Seahawk and the Swordfish, that retails for anything between 20 and 45 pound. Airways VacForm did a VacForm kit of the AS Mark 7 for 30 to 35 pound, and Frog did the Firefly F Mark 1 for about 10 to 22 pound. Magna models do a Firefly T Mark 1, T Mark 2, a T Mark 7 and a U8, which is a resin and white metal multimedia kit for about 20 to 25 pound. And Special Hobby do a really nice Firefly Mark 1, an F Mark 1, an F Mark 4, an F Mark 5, a T Mark 1, a T Mark 2 and a TT Mark 4, all in pretty much separate boxings for 20 to 25 pound. Now the following kits are reboxed Frog kits. Arc Model did a Mark 1 for about 10 to 15, Cometic Gomex did a Mark 1 for about 10 to 15, DZI Donetsk Toy Factory did a Mark 1 for about 5 to 15 pound, Eastern Express did a Mark 1 for about 8 to 15 pound, Modelcraft did a Mark 1 for about 10 to 15 pound, Novo did a Mark 1 for about 5 to 15 pound, and Old Frog Novo kits did another one for about 15 to 20 pound. Plasti did the reboxed Airfix kit for about 25 to 30 pound, and SMER did a Firefly Mark 1 reboxed Frog kit for about 10 to 15 pound, and ZTS Plastic also reboxed the F Mark 1 from Frog for 5 to 15 pound. Conclusions. Now, given that I have a first release kit from 1964, I'm guessing the decals are going to be shot, but the parts look okay, and again the 64 pilots and build methods show in this kit. The variant depicted by the Airfix kit was again a surprise, as I never expected an Aussie naval version, but should be quite interesting to build. I've never built this kit before and looking forward to having the experience of building it. Models worthy of note are the Special Hobby kits. They are praised by the pro builders and IPMS modelers, and the Frog based kits, though they're not that great, they are quite cheap and easy to obtain. I hope this video has been of some use. If you have any queries or questions, pop them in the comments box and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye bye.